Iowa is a farming town of roughly 500 people. It's the kind of small town where everybody keeps their doors unlocked.
It's very tight-knit. Everybody knows everybody. It's very quaint.
This isn't the sort of community where you expect a home invasion to occur.
What begins as a home invasion escalates into a shooting as Tracey Richter fights to save her life and the lives of her children.
He went into that house with the intention to kill.
He was shot 9 times.
Somebody came in the house, and they tied her up, and they were choking her. My mom got to the gun and shot the other one ran off. Okay, I'm gonna get the police right away.
At approximately 6:50 p.m. on December 13th, 2001, dispatchers get a 911 call from Tracey Richter's 11-year-old son, Bert, describing an assault and a shooting that has just taken place at his home. It's an event that will make national news and shock the sleepy town of Early, Iowa. Before her life in the small town of Early, Iowa, Tracey lives in the big city of Chicago, Illinois. There she meets her first husband, Dr. John Pittman, while studying medicine at the University of Northwestern. They marry in 1988, and 2 years later have a son named Bert, but the marriage doesn't last long.
She divorces him in 1996, and then she marries Michael Roberts shortly after that.
Michael and Tracey meet online and aren't together long before tying the knot in Brisbane, Australia, where Michael's from. The divorce proceedings with Dr. Pittman are ugly and protracted, leading to an ongoing custody battle over Bert. On June 1st, 1996, John is court-instructed to pay child support, $750 per month, inflating to $1,000 per month in 1998. He still has visiting privileges with Bert. The newly married Michael and Tracey are looking for a change of scenery and want to get away from the big city.
Tracey and Michael moved to Early in 1998. They moved from one of the largest cities in the United States to probably one of the smallest. Found a quaint Victorian home in a small town.
That same year, they start an online business and have a son. Moving to Early is a chance to get away from the past and start over.
It's very tight-knit. Everybody knows everybody. The populations are between 300 and 500 people. It's largely dependent upon local agriculture. So it's very quaint, and a lot of families have lived there for generations upon generations.
But even in a new town, issues with her ex-husband, John Pittman, persist. He has visitation rights, and therefore Bert must share his time between Tracey and John's places.
Tracey isn't happy about the arrangement. John is pushing to have full custody of Bert, and Tracey's afraid she may lose her son.
In 2001, the custody case over Bert is looming. But life for Tracey and Michael in Early, Iowa is good. Michael is busy with his computer business, and Tracey has since had another child, a daughter. Then, on December 13th, 2001, less than 2 weeks before Christmas, Michael has to go out of town.
Michael was on a business trip with his business partner.
Tracey is home alone with the kids when the unthinkable happens.
911 emergency. Beacon, please send an ambulance. Okay, bye.
Tracey's son, Bert Pittman, made the 911 call. The 911 operator picked up and received what was a very frantic and hurried message that was very disjointed. The 911 technology did identify the Roberts residence as being the source of the call.
An officer is dispatched, though they have no idea what they're walking into. Within minutes, a deputy is on the scene.
He's approaching and very cautious, concerned not just for, his own safety, but the safety of the neighbors, the safety of Tracey and her children inside the home. He placed himself behind a large tree adjacent to the Roberts home and then had dialogue with Tracey, who had stepped out of the side door and communicated that not one, but two men had fled, and she pointed the direction that they had gone.
As he comes out from behind the tree cover, he looks closely in the direction that Tracey said the men fled. But oddly enough, there are no tracks in the snow. Maybe in all the commotion, she's simply confused about the direction that they actually went. His main concern now is making sure that he gets everybody inside the house so that Tracey and her kids are safe.
The deputy checks if Tracey and the children are okay and asks for details of what happened.
The scenario that she describes is that she runs into the bedroom. Somebody comes in after her and grabs her and has a sort of pantyhose or some sort of scarf around her neck and is just yanking at her.
So far, between the 911 call and Tracey's bursts of information, it's not clear if there's someone still in the home. And if there is someone in the home, are they a threat?
The deputy finally gets Tracey to confirm there is someone upstairs, but she shot him several times, and she's pretty sure he's dead. A second officer arrives on the scene, allowing the deputy to leave Tracey and her kids while he sweeps the rest of the home. The officer points to the white vehicle in the driveway. Tracey says it isn't hers and that it must belong to the intruders. All the lights, save for the kitchen, appear to be off. The deputy makes his way through the house with his flashlight.
He finds a light switch at the foot of the stairs, and as he goes along, he continues to call out, announcing himself. If there is still someone there, they need to know that he's a police officer and that they need to show themselves.
The deputy slowly makes his way down the hall towards the master bedroom.
Before even getting to the bedroom, he can see that there's a body of a man on the floor near the doorway. He calls out, but there's no response, and as he gets closer, he can see why.
He's lying on the ground in a pool of blood.
The deputy can see he's been shot several times. There's very little chance that this individual is still alive. He checks for a pulse. There is none. Whoever this home invader was, he was killed by Tracey in self-defense.
There is literally still smoke in the air from the guns, and it smells like a weapon has just been fired.
The deputy calls down to the other officer, letting him know that the intruder is dead and that the house is secure.
Tracey and her children have just suffered a harrowing ordeal. It'll now be up to investigators to put all the pieces together in an effort to understand why they are the targets of this home invasion gone wrong, and how it ended in the death of this young man.
There were two figures coming up the stairs, and I saw the face of the first one come up. There was a struggle in the hallway. I was screaming, "Don't move." I eventually fired one round.
Tracey Richter meets Dr. John Pittman while living in Chicago, and the two are quickly married. They have a son together named Bert, and after a few years, they divorce. Rather quickly, Tracey is remarried to an Australian man she meets online, Michael Roberts. Their honeymoon phase is short-lived, however, as the custody war with Dr. Pittman over Bert begins. Tracey, Bert, and Michael move to early Iowa. They have two more kids. Life is fairly simple and quiet until the evening of December 13th, 2001, when intruders break into the home while Michael is away on business. Tracey manages to fight back, and in the struggle, one of the intruders is shot dead. With the area secured, the EMT can now enter the home. He pronounces the young man dead at 7:22 p.m.
The deputy then calls for the DCI lab team and special agents to come to the scene. There are multiple gunshots and blood spatter everywhere. There's lots here that needs thorough analysis.
Detectives try to get a statement from Tracey, but she's preoccupied, demanding to know the identity of the man upstairs that she has shot.
She keeps mentioning her ex-husband, Dr. John Pittman, certain that he's somehow involved. But the deputy knows pretty much everybody in the community, and he conveys to her that the dead body upstairs is likely Tracey's neighbor.
So Dustin Weedy was this 19-year-old kid who had some learning disabilities, one of the most easygoing, friendly, quiet people in town. And when he met Tracey Richter and Michael Roberts, Michael kind of took Dustin under his wing and mentored him.
Dustin craved, approval and attention. He didn't have many friends. He had very, very few friends. And so the Roberts at least presented as friends to Dustin. And I know that Dustin believed that everybody in that family, even Tracey, was a friend.
The revelation that she's just shot and killed her neighbor, a friend of the family's, comes as a shock to Tracey. She can't fathom why he'd want to hurt her or her children after everything Michael has done to accept him into their home.
Tracey said she didn't know who it was. She didn't know who she shot and killed, but it was Bert at that time. When Tracey said she didn't know, Bert said something to the effect of, well, it was Dustin, Mom, don't you know? It was Dustin that we had seen. And so that's when she hyperventilated, and then they whisked her away to the emergency room.
While Tracey and her kids are taken to hospital, the deputy medical examiner arrives on the scene.
The detectives can immediately see that it is a very grisly scene. The victim is located on the ground with blood pooling around his body and multiple visible shots to his head and upper body. Additionally, there are large amounts of blood spatter throughout the room.
He notices something in the pocket of the jeans, and he removes a wallet. Inside the wallet is identification that confirms the deputy's suspicion that this young man is in fact the mild-mannered neighbor, Dustin.
While Tracey awaits medical attention, detectives ask for her account of events. But Tracey isn't willing to talk to detectives just yet, and the lieutenant obliges, leaving her to the care of medical professionals for the time being.
Tracey had never given a statement to law enforcement until after she had spoken with the local paper. She didn't speak with the detectives, the State Detective Bureau. She contacted the local newspaper and asked them to come interview her, and she gave them a full-blown interview.
Tracey recounts for the reporter the deadly home invasion that she's just survived. She explains that her husband Michael is away on business. She's running a bath for her daughter when she hears a noise from downstairs.
She's upstairs, she hears people come in, and she looks down the stairs and she sees somebody.
There were two figures coming up the stairs, and I saw the face of the first one come up, and it wasn't Michael. I ran away and was going into the boys' room when I was grabbed from behind. There was a struggle in the hallway that started out in front of Bert's room. There was something around my neck. I was twisting and jerking and kicking and trying to get free, and I couldn't get free. The next thing I remember is waking up on the floor in the guest room bedroom. I heard my oldest boy yelling, and I thought I was having a bad dream. I got up And I immediately ran towards the commotion that was occurring outside Bert's room. Halfway there, I realized, what was I going to do? There were what appeared to be two figures down there.
Tracey knows she needs to fight. She beelines it to her bedroom, where she and Michael keep a gun safe.
I went between the bed and the dresser wall. I was trying to get the gun safe open, and it wasn't opening up. And then there was someone grabbing at me.
Tracey repeatedly tries the combination lock in the dark, and just when she's about to be overpowered, the safe opens.
These weren't really guns for novice people. We're talking a 440, a 357. You know, those are hand cannons. You fire that gun, you're gonna kill somebody with that gun.
I fired until the figure that was there wasn't standing there anymore. I heard my kids screaming. I reached into the gun safe, grabbed a second weapon, and then I ran down the hall to the kids' room and opened their door. And Bert almost took my head off with a baseball bat. At that point, I asked if they were okay. They said they were fine.
Then she hears moaning coming from the bedroom, and she goes back to check on the intruder. She tells reporters that at this time, she hadn't identified the person as her neighbor.
Tracey sees the man moving.
I was screaming, "Don't move, don't get up." They kept trying to get up. I eventually fired, I believe, one round.
After he fails to comply, she fires until he stops moving.
Tracey finishes her harrowing account of what happens by speculating that her ex-husband, Dr. John Pittman, is involved. At this point, there's no evidence to corroborate this theory, other than a hunch, but that may soon change. While investigators search for the unidentified man who got away, they also have the unenviable task of informing Dustin's parents that their son was shot and killed. They confirm that he leaves around 5:30 p.m. and that the white car at the Roberts house is his. Investigators look to obtain a warrant to search the car. They're hopeful there may be some piece of evidence that can illuminate Dustin's motive in this home invasion gone wrong. On December 13th, 2001, two men break into Tracey Richter's home while her husband Michael is away on business. Tracey is attacked, but manages to get to the gun safe. She kills one of the intruders in self-defense, her neighbor, Dustin Weedy. Officers meticulously photograph the home and collect evidence, including the two guns Tracey uses to kill Dustin. A search of the house reveals no forced entry, and nothing appears to be stolen. There are no signs of ransacking in any of the rooms in the house. The only room that appears to be disturbed is the master bedroom, where the shooting takes place.
The detectives realize that blood spatter is going to be important to this case and that they need to document how the blood was deposited. Looking at how the blood is deposited can help tell the story of what happened and give the detectives some insight into what took place and how it took place.
Right now, one of the biggest questions still looming is what motivated the attack. But Tracey is convinced she already knows who is behind this, her ex-husband, John Pittman. Officers obtain a warrant and search Dustin's car.
Dustin Weedy's car is parked in the driveway of the Roberts home. And in full view, lying on the seat is a journal, a notebook.
Investigators bag it for evidence to be looked at later. There's not much else of interest in the car except an old computer, but it's unlikely that this is what Dustin came here to steal.
The lieutenant is looking through Dustin's notebook when something catches his eye. He sees the name John Pittman written several times.
In the notebook is this kind of narrative in Dustin Weedy's handwriting. confirmed about how John Pittman, Tracey's first husband, arranged this whole home invasion and the murder of Tracey and her son Bert. So two things now we have to look at. One is, how did Dustin Weedy know John Pittman? John Pittman lives in Chicago. He's never even been to Early, Iowa.
Investigators immediately request handwriting samples from Dustin's parents, careful not to bring up any mention of the notebook that was found in his vehicle. An expert is able to examine the handwriting and determines that it is a match.
There is no doubt that that is Dustin Weedy's handwriting. He wrote that narrative. If he wrote that narrative, then you have to believe that he went into that house with the intention to kill Tracey Richter Roberts and her son Bert.
While investigators are following up on the possible lead found in Dustin's notebook, his body is taken to Sioux City, where an autopsy is performed.
X-rays are taken at the autopsy, followed by a full body exam. The pathologist is able to determine that the victim, Dustin, has 9 entry gunshot wounds, as well as 8 exit wounds. 1 projectile is recovered from the body, and an additional graze wound is found on Dustin's back. The doctor notes that 6 of the 9 entry wounds are in Dustin's back, which is interesting due to the fact that the suspect, Tracey Richter, is claiming that she killed Dustin in self-defense.
And there's literally a bullet wound in the back of his ear, like he's been executed.
Every piece of evidence is carefully cataloged.
For investigators, the autopsy tells a story that doesn't line up with the one that Tracey's been telling them.
This may not be an open and shut case of self-defense, after all. The lieutenant follows up on the possible lead from the notebook and gets in touch with Tracey's ex-husband, Dr. John Pittman.
He's careful not to mention the notebook. Only he and a few other investigators know about it.
It was decided at that time that they would keep that hush, that they would not disclose it in any way and disseminate neither, its contents or its existence to anybody. And figuring that the first person to talk about it, the first person to evince knowledge of its contents would have some questions to answer.
Dr. Pittman is eager to help the investigation. He answers all the questions and provides his alibi for December 13th. He tells detectives he's never spoken to or had any contact with Dustin Wade. He does tell them that he's in an ongoing custody battle for Bert. Dr. Pittman informs the lieutenant that in 1991, Tracey was charged for using a firearm in Colorado when she fired a round into the ceiling of their home. He informs him that Tracey has a history of criminal activity. Not only that, on more than one occasion, she has made accusations that he has sexually abused their son, Bert. All of those accusations have been unsubstantiated. Dr. Pittman essentially paints a picture of Tracey as a woman who would basically do anything, including leveraging her own son, to get what she wants.
She wanted custody of Bert, and she knew that with her background and that John Pittman had remarried and he was living a really solid, healthy lifestyle, a good guy. She knew she was going to lose custody to him and his new wife.
Investigators look into Dr. Pittman's alibi, as well as his allegations about Tracey's history, and they find that it all checks out. They've eliminated him as a suspect, but in doing so, they've just raised more questions.
Why would his name be in Dustin's notebook? Why would Dustin attack Tracey? Who's the second attacker? Is Tracey's account accurate, or is there something she's not telling police?
The narrative isn't adding up, and as far as public perception is concerned, the residents of Early aren't sure what to believe. Tracey's story has hit the local papers, and rumors and gossip about what has really happened spread quickly.
I think there were a number of different reactions from people within the community. Some, taking, the Weedy side. Some believing that, she was a genuine victim. And I saw that the community was fairly split.
In an effort to control the narrative, Tracey and Michael appear on the Montel Williams show, where Tracey is touted as, quote, Hero Mom. The show is broadcast nationally.
So in the beginning days after this home invasion, Tracey is viewed as some sort of hero, that she protected her family, that she's a gun owner, she knew how to use a weapon, and, you know, we're not gonna take it here in early Iowa. You know, you come into our home, we're gonna protect ourselves.
Almost 1 year later, on November 28th, 2002, Dustin's dad, Brett, commits suicide at his son's grave. In the years that follow, Dustin's mom, Mona, files a case for wrongful death against Tracey, claiming that she lures Dustin in.
The civil suit was ultimately dismissed. Tracey was judgment-proof. The attorney for Dustin's estate, met with Mona, and the two of them, decided that they had gotten from the civil suit what they wanted. It wasn't money, they wanted answers and information, and it was to get this information and then give it to law enforcement.
In 2002, Tracey and her family leave the town of Early, but things with Michael have already started to sour.
Michael and Tracey divorced a few years after the shooting. The divorce proceedings drug on for years and, were very contentious, very litigious.
She begins another custody battle with Michael, in addition to the one she's still fighting with Dr. Pittman. While public perception may be on Tracey's side on the national stage, at home, that's not the case. Tracey's claim of self-defense is looked upon with skepticism. Nonetheless, years go by, and it appears that nothing more will come of the case. But not everyone has forgotten. And in August 2008, a special agent of the Department of Criminal Investigation is assigned to investigate Dustin Weedy's murder. In December 2001, Tracey Richter claims she is attacked in her home by her neighbor, Dustin Weedy, and a second assailant. In self-defense, she shoots and kills Dustin. She's touted as a hero mom by the press for defending her children. But the townfolk of Early, Iowa aren't convinced by her story of self-defense. And neither is the special agent, who in 2008 is assigned to further investigate the shooting death of Dustin.
One of the aha moments in this case that tells the agent they're on the right track comes when he discovers that Tracey had knowledge of the pink notebook from Dustin's car.
When the two, began the divorce proceedings, Tracey began positioning Michael as maybe the second intruder, or at least somebody that had put Dustin up to this. So she completely backed off from Dr. Pittman and had moved on to putting Michael at the forefront of being culpable for Dustin's death. Was very proactive in, manufacturing a case against Michael and taking that information and giving it to law enforcement. And it wasn't long after the two, began divorcing that Tracey walked in to the sheriff's office and said, "You need to know this. I don't know if it's relevant or not, but before we divorced, Michael used to talk in his sleep, and at one point, he talked in his sleep about writing a journal with Dustin, and it was just preposterous." The law enforcement, personnel at the time, they were new because, some time had passed and there was a new sheriff and new investigators.
Tracey's comment about the notebook falls through the cracks years earlier because of personnel changes in the investigation. But in going through the records, the agent realizes that there's no way Tracey should know about it unless she had some involvement in manufacturing it.
The idea was the first person to talk about this notebook is going to be the best chance and the best opportunity that they have to solve this case. So they never let that information out.
The detectives realized that if they are going to go after Tracey for the killing of Dustin, the ballistic information is going to be crucial to the case.
It's one of the reasons why the first prosecutor in this case kind of let the case fall to the side, because he's like, How do I try this case? Where's the evidence? The woman is looked at as a hero. And for 10 years, Tracey gets away with it.
On December 19, 2008, the detectives contact Englert Forensic Consulting in reference to conducting a bloodstain pattern analysis and a crime scene reconstruction on the case. By early January 2009, Englert has received documents from the case and has conducted interviews. He and his team head to Des Moines, Iowa in January 15, 2009 to visit the crime scene and to review evidence at the Public Safety Laboratory.
The agent obtains a warrant for Tracey's former residence so that forensic consultants can analyze and reconstruct the events of December 13, 2001.
Rod Englert and his team are joined by the deputy, who was the first responding officer, along with the special agent. Based on his recollection, he walks them through the events when he arrived on the scene in 2001. He takes them through the backyard where he first called out to Tracey to come out.
The detective recalls the events chronologically, finding Tracey seated on the floor, the semi-automatic pistol beside her. He recounts trying to get her to leave the house when a second officer arrives, allowing him to sweep the house. It's about this time that Tracey says she doesn't know who she has shot, when she is contradicted by Bert, who claims that she does, that it's Dustin Weedy. At the top of the stairs, he takes the group directly to the north bedroom. There, he says he approaches Dustin from behind to check for a pulse and does not find one. Another family now lives here, and the furniture and its location within the room has changed.
Englert and his team visit the crime scene where they rearrange the room based on photographs and measurements to how it was on the night of the murder. 2 agents stand in for Tracey and Dustin to recreate what happened. Englert uses red dots on the victim to indicate entry wounds and blue dots to indicate exit wounds.
The female agent takes a position at the south side of the bed, close to where the safe would have been. Dustin approaches. Based on Tracey's statement, Dustin attacks her from this position and she fires at him from the floor.
In her statement, Tracey indicates that she was on the south side of the bed for some of the shots fired on the night of the murder. Englert and his team run trajectory strings to the location where she said she was located. While some of the shots are consistent with having been fired from this location, it immediately becomes clear that some of the wounds to Dustin's body could not have been fired from this location.
The agent's confidence in his initial hunch is bolstered. He's got Tracey talking about the notebook. He's got the ballistics that contradict her narrative. Now all he needs is a prosecutor to take the case.
In November 2010, Ben Smith is elected as the new county attorney.
I take office. I'm 2 days into my first term, and a state detective stops by and says, under the guise of, oh, I'm just introducing myself, he said, oh, by the way, when you get time, I want to talk to you about this case. You know, about this cold case. It wasn't something I planned to even look at in the first year. And it would just pique my curiosity to the point where he's got to be embellishing. This can't be true. This can't be accurate. So I'd go get the blue book, one of the 3, open it up, and sure, as the day is long, he was accurate in what he was saying. He believed that she had gotten away with murder. And, within a couple of weeks of looking through the binders, I came to the same conclusion.
On December 13, 2001, Tracey Richter shoots her neighbor, Dustin Weedy, 9 times, killing him. Tracey claims she is attacked and it's in self-defense. But almost a decade later, investigators re-examine the case. They hire the Englert forensic consultants. The ballistics and data they collect contradicts Tracey's version of events. With new county attorney Ben Smith in office, the agent pushes him to try the case and bring Tracey in on a first-degree murder charge. Ben Smith is in his first year on the job, and already he's taking on a high-profile murder case.
I'm green. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never prosecuted, a speeding ticket at the time, let alone, a murder.
Their first steps were to talk to Tracey, and she didn't want to talk, but she did start sending emails to Trent Valita, and she started talking about the case. So he just continued to bait her. He just continued to send her questions, and she dug herself a hole. She started contradicting what she had said earlier. So they have that. Then they get the information about the woman who says, Tracey told me the contents of the journal before they were released. That's a huge witness.
On March 30th, 2011, the special agent and DA, Ben Smith, interview a former friend of Tracey's who still lives in Early.
She corroborates the agent's suspicion that Tracey knew about the notebook. She tells them that after the incident, Tracey told her that police found a notebook in Dustin's car. She said Dr. Pittman was the one who brought all of this into play. All of the stuff in the notebook suggested that Dr. Pittman was behind it.
The agent knows investigators keep the notebook a secret. Therefore, the only way Tracey could know about it is if she planted it there. The former friend agrees to testify to all of this at trial.
The first thing that comes to mind is, well, Dustin Weedy definitely wrote that note. He definitely wrote that John Pittman had hired him to go in there and kill Tracey and kill the kid and all of this. So now we have to ask the question, okay, if Tracey's guilty, how did Dustin Weedy write that note? They find out that Dustin Weedy had been going over there during the day. So Tracey kind of worked on him for months leading up to this, quote, home invasion. There's every indication that, of course, she used sex to lure this kid into playing a game. Let's play a game. Let's sit down and let's write a story. Remember now, Dustin Weedy, he has some learning disabilities, so she took advantage of that.
On July 26, 2011, Tracey is arrested in Omaha on a warrant from Sac County, Iowa, of first-degree murder. She is transported to Sac County, and her trial begins 3 months later, in October. Prosecutors walk the jury through their findings in the case, breaking down Tracey's claim of self-defense and painting a picture of what really happens to Dustin Weedy.
They discuss the pink notebook, which Tracey should not have known about unless she had some part in fabricating it. They point to it as motive. Tracey wanted full custody of Bert, so she either tricked or coerced Dustin into writing it in order to vilify Dr. Pittman.
They also addressed the alleged strangulation marks on her neck.
The doctor who did the autopsy of Dustin, he would also go on to testify that the ligature marks around Tracey's necks were fabricated, that they were rug burns, that they could not have caused her to lose consciousness as she claimed.
But the real nail in the coffin is the forensic consultant, Rod Engler.
Rod Engler then, took his findings and, oriented the jury as if they were sitting in Tracey's bedroom, step by step, shot by shot. He would take me and move me in the direction that Dustin, according to the science and the forensics, Dustin's path and the sequence of events and the shootings of where he was at.
There's some to the back of the head just doesn't fit this at all because I know that the head was on the floor, as I will show you. So we've got 4, and we know that he's been hit 9 times. So we also have 4 defects on the floor.
Mr. Engler, you said Dustin suffered 9 gunshot wounds. Can you account for the other 5 gunshot wounds?
Yes, I can. As he is down and going down to the floor, there's a shot number 4 in the right neck. And in my opinion, based upon the gouges in the floor, when the shot goes through the neck and comes out and creates one of the gouges. He is shot 1, according to the medical examiner here, this will go out of the left ear. Number 2 and number 3 are in the back of his neck. And we have blood patterns that support this. There's a blood pattern in a cone shape coming this direction. There's another blood pattern, very elongated, coming this direction towards the dresser. and a third coming to the north against the closet door. Wet blood added. But then there's a fourth. And the fourth is like jello that's been hit, coagulated blood. It just went all over the room.
When you're looking at from the east wall, was there a dresser that was significant to you, Mr. Engler?
Yes, sir, because some of the blood is coagulated, which is different mass. It does not do the geometric patterns that you see here. It has hit the floor, some has hit the face of the dresser, on top of the dresser, and all the way up to the ceiling on the east wall. That takes a lot of energy, but it's shooting into something that has heaviness to it, mass to it. It's coagulated blood. The fibrogen is out of it. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes for that to occur.
It's very, very powerful evidence. It's easy to say, yeah, she fired a bunch of shots, some connected. But to actually see where she was at, or at least according to her, and where the science said she was, it left a lot for the defense to try to fix.
So the jury took 4 hours and 20 minutes and came back and said they had a verdict. So if you include a lunch in there, that's 3 hours in a murder trial that went on for weeks.
The jury found Tracey guilty of first-degree murder.
She is sentenced to life in prison.
I think the community reaction to the verdict, I think, was just as mixed as, it was days after the shooting. I think some people still believe that Dustin was the aggressor. Not too many, though. Not as many as there were at the outset. Tracey's family, steadfast in their belief that she's innocent. But Mona's, her tears in the months that preceded the trial, and her heartache was, it stuck with me. And I felt more relief for them, because for years, their son was the aggressor. Their son was the perpetrator of this heinous offense, and we find the defendant guilty, and by the jury returning those words, it completely, exonerated Dustin's character and gave the Weedy family at least an avenue, or put them one step closer to getting whatever closure is for a murder.